Alright guys, HyDra Lqgend. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Big roster updates happening in the CDL last night. Riyadh Falcons officially confirmed their full roster for the upcoming season, but also major rumours as to what's going on with some of the Halo players that are currently playing at HGF. Charlotte will have the World Championship just around the corner, but also might be coming to the CDL next year. OpTic Lqgend has been the key name in these conversations. Apparently Surge are very interested, and as a result, Gwyn, despite having offers from multiple teams remaining in the CDL, is leaning that way as well. What's going to happen next given the history between Surge and OpTic when it comes to buyouts? Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Lots to dive into. We're going to start here. Zuma talks about running a load of tournaments in BO7. We don't know exactly when the CDL is going to start. They say that it's going to be early December for the proper CDL matches. But of course, if the game comes out mid-November, early mid-November, then there will be something, some time to wait, let's say. Zuma reckons that he's going to run some tournaments in that interim, which is going to be sensational to see. And I'm not going to lie, we're going to talk a bit more about it later on today. This game, whatever you think about it to play, it is going to be very interesting and probably very entertaining to watch from a competitive perspective. These are what we think the lands are going to be. We're currently not 100% sure. These are the current rumours. Toronto for Major 1, Birmingham, that's Birmingham in the UK, not Birmingham in Alabama, for Major 2 at the NEC, where CWL Birmingham was back in March 2018. Major 3 is a question mark because there have actually been no technical rumours on this, at least announced by any sources. But I think we can kind of put 2 and 2 together and be like, well, it would be a huge surprise if OpTic did not have an event this year. So you can probably put at least an OpTic event. It's probably going to be Texas. It might not be. They might want to host it somewhere else. But it would be a huge surprise if there wasn't an OpTic event next season. That's probably going to be Major 3. Major 4 we think is going to be Paris. Initially, Gataga said the chances of this were relatively slim. Now it seems more likely. I will say, even today, LA Gorillas mates or whatever, they're still a thing, right? We've not seen the relocation yet. I think with Falcons moving from Vegas to Riyadh, with FaZe moving from Atlanta to Vegas, we might have thought that Gentlemates might have been confirmed to be the Paris Gentlemates or something, but as it stands, no. But they will probably run an event there. Champs we think could be Vegas, hosted by FaZe. We're not really sure. And then we know where the World Cup's going to be. So that's the talks on that. I thought it was a little interesting what Merc said in the replies, because Jake is like, well, hang on, we're still guessing where Major 3 is, because I think, as I say, there are some expectations as to what OpTic might be up to. Merc says, well, it's not out yet, so yes, we're still guessing, but he doesn't say anything about the other ones. So maybe implies that this is pretty close to what the real calendar is going to be. Exactly when these events are, good question. We know when Birmingham's going to be, because it's the last weekend of March, which is very, very late for the second major of the season. But unfortunately, that is what happens when we are a poverty league and we have to align all of our events with DreamHack, among others. Also an update on the maps that are coming to BO7. So Yemen, we've known for quite some time, is coming back. There were several hints about this. Meltdown was another map that there were several hints that it was going to return. There was talk from the devs that they're going to bring back what was a classic search and destroy map played in Black Ops 2. So Meltdown's apparently going to be in the game. There is a little bit of talk, and understandably, the way these maps might play with the wall bouncing mechanic, right? How's it going to change things? How's it going to change the way that these maps were originally designed? If you put wall running on these maps, things would change dramatically, as we know. Wall running and jetpacks change a lot of maps. I mean, Raid was brought back as Empire in Black Ops 3, and to be fair, it was still Raid, but any map you put wall running and jetpacks on is going to be drastically different. Black Ops 7 is just a wall bounce. Is it going to completely change the flow and the way that a map plays? Not necessarily. It is definitely going to change the way that some of the gunfights will play out on certain maps, but these are the two that we kind of knew. The other new one that's been thrown into the mix as of last night is actually Vertigo. Now, I was thinking about Vertigo the other day because there's a part of the Forge that reminds me of this map. This is a DLC map from Black Ops 2, a pretty legendary one at that, it's got to be said. And there were many great moments on this. There were clips from Pomages like the Catalyst 2 that are on this map, and many other moments as well. Is it considered one of the greatest maps in COD history? No. But would it genuinely be better to play than most of the recent maps we've had on Black Ops 6? Almost certainly yes. Could it be a competitive map? I don't really see that potential much. Maybe there's a world where it's possible if we really need it. But look, I still think it's kind of nice. We are, of course, seeing an awful lot of throwback maps right now. Effectively, it's Black Ops 2 2.0, but it's very much not Black Ops 2 in terms of movement. It's far more similar to some of the games we had still about 10 years ago, right? BO3, Infinite Warfare, games like that. But yeah, Meltdown, Yemen, Vertigo potentially coming back as well from Black Ops 2. We've got Raid coming back, we've got Hijack, we've got Express. So plenty of BO2 maps, maybe more on the way. I know that some would say, oh, well, if they're going to remaster Vertigo, they should remaster this or that or some other great Black Ops 2 map. That's also an argument as well. We'll see what they cook up down the line. But let's talk about some of the roster stuff. The FaZe guys were loading in for the first time. Okay, they didn't have Drazah, they had Crowder. Drazah's probably playing some Chals. What we did see is Falcons confirming their full roster. So we know that Pred's going to stay. We know that Xnid's going to stay. Cellium, they confirmed him joining a few days ago. Now, there were a little bit of questions about the fourth just because Biffle retired from Warzone. So people were like, oh, could they consider it just because Biffle's on the Falcons? But the rumor was Kismet, and that's now been officially confirmed. The Bulldog has arrived in Riyadh, a world champion known for his gun skill, leadership, and passion. Please help us welcome Kismet to the roster. So, look, was this the team that they wanted to form? Probably not. They were probably interested in some of the Thieves guys, to our understanding, but given the options that were left on the table for them, we know that aBeZy had an offer from Falcons as well. He said so on the Thieves podcast the other day, but he was never in two minds as to where he was going to end up. Sib was interested, we think, but potentially said no and went to the Gentlemates, we think, because he was concerned that Falcons would just replace him next year when things change around. But this is the announcement. I know there was a bit of talk about like them using AI for the announcements or whatever, because you guys know that they had that graphic designer Osama. Usually when he's made a graphic, he tweets about it. I checked his Twitter, he's not tweeting in a little while. He's still working with them, I think, but not on everything. So I know there's always a little bit of talk about that in the community. But as Kismet says, excited for the opportunity, can't wait to get the grind started with such a talented group of people. I'll be competing with the Riyadh Falcons for the 2026 CDL season, and drops a bit of Arabic in the last bit as well. Let me just hit the translation on this. Proud to represent Riyadh and can't wait to bring success with the team. So there we go. What type of success will the team deliver? That is a very good question, right? Pred, Kismet, Xnid, Cellium. What's the ceiling of that team? I think pretty high, but the floor I think is also pretty low. I do wonder how Kiz and Pred will get on, but also it's not just about that as a duo, because on paper you think, oh, well, Kismet and HyDra was a great duo. Pred, in terms of being a slaying SMG, you know, there's some similarities there with HyDra over the last couple of years. You know, not quite to the same extent, but I think there's some conversation there to be had, and maybe Kiz and Pred could work very well, but of course, Kiz isn't his SMG duo, Kiz is the flex. That's our understanding anyway, that Xnid will go back to the SMG, because they did try it right at the end of the season. They turned up to the World Cup. The rumour was that they were putting Xnid to the Flexnids, and they brought in TJ to see if they could maybe make it work with another SMG, right? The big talk going into this off-season was that aBeZy was potentially going to end up on the Falcons with maybe Xnid on the Flex. That was kind of the idea. Pred, aBeZy, and then Xnid looking for one that may have eventually been Cellium, right? But that didn't work out. aBeZy got the Thieves offer, which he was never willing to say no to, and understandably so. So it left them in this spot. And also Xnid didn't really deliver on the flex that much of the World Cup. They didn't play too many matches, but it's not like he was particularly good on that role, so I think Falcons felt it best to put Xnid back to the SMG for the upcoming year with Pred, then bring in a new flex. And look, can Kiz do a good job on the flex? Probably yes. Is that team, to me, like really turning heads? Not necessarily. So we'll see in due course what some of the reaction is from the other pro players to this team as well. But we've known this roster for some time now. I don't think they're going to be mixing it up for championships, but there's certainly a lot of talent on that team. And there will be questions as to, well, if Xnid doesn't deliver, if they swap him out, then maybe they could be a serious force next season. There are also some questions how some of these players are going to fare in the new movement mechanics that we have here in Black Ops 7. You know, I think for Pred it's going to be especially interesting because his playstyle, when he's been the best, you know, hasn't necessarily aligned so well with using a load of these advanced movement mechanics. Maybe that'll still be fine for him. Maybe, as Scrap says, the iron always wins, as it were. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the new year. Now, one player that definitely will be looking at BO7 and thinking, well, I might be able to do some damage on that game, is OpTic Lqgend. And frankly, this may apply to a load of the Halo players as well. I think people are expecting that Neptune and Huke, for example, Shotzzy, right, former Halo guys who are pretty good at movement, if you guys hadn't noticed, could be in the conversation for being a serious threat this upcoming year. Now, the OpTic Halo guys, basically the entire team apart from Formal, they have said at some point in the last couple of months that they are interested in coming to COD. Just a quick backstory, the Halo Championship Series is basically ending after this year. They've kind of run out of money or interest or whatever. They'll probably wait until the new Halo comes out to run it again, and it's the same playbook we've seen year after year. So Legend said that he was interested in coming to COD, so did Bound and Renegade. Formal, of course, may just call it a day and retire. He's fully focused on trying to get the best result possible at the Halo World Championship. But Bound and Renegade, they said they're interested. Hex was like, hang on a second, you guys are still contracted. There's been plenty of other players as well from Cloud9's Halo team, among others, that say that they want to make the switch for 2026 as well. But Hex actually did say on a podcast that he had already had conversations about Legend with certain teams. Now, what he did say, Hex, is that he would not be willing to let Legend go if it was only to a bench spot. If he's going to sell Legends, because, you know, he is contracted, there will be some sort of conversation there to be had. He will do so to a CDL team because, you know, does he want to hold Legend against his will? That's not the way that Hex wants to do things. And if Legend wants to go and play in the Call of Duty League, then Hex would be willing to make that happen, is what he said at the time, if it was a starting roster spot. So the latest rumour is that it's actually Surge who are looking to swoop in here. So there's been so much talk about Legend because he's considered in many respects the most talented of the Halo players that could and would be willing to make the transition to COD. We thought that maybe Space Station Gaming, if they were to go and get Ravens, which we're not sure they're doing anymore, but if they were to do that, it would make a lot of sense because he's played for them before. There would be an existing relationship there. But according to Ronnie, Surge are in advanced talks with both Legend and with Gwyn for the upcoming season. Now, this is especially interesting. The interest in Legends makes a lot of sense, of course. There was interest in this player for some time. I think if you're a roster in Surge's position, not got too much money to spend, but definitely interested in still being competitive next year, you want to take a risk on someone with some serious upside. I think what's interesting about this is that apparently Gwyn really wants to play with Legends, and he has an offer from Cloud9, and there were rumours that he also had an offer from Rocket, right, from G2. Gwyn was linked to that Rocket team for a time, but apparently Gwyn maybe has interest from, who knows, even Ravens as well, but Cloud9, from Rocket, from Surge, and he wants to play with Legends, so he is apparently going to go that way. Wherever Legend goes, Gwyn is going to look to end up as well. I think the other question about this is going to be, how does that dynamic work with OpTic? Just because, as I mentioned at the start of the video, let's not forget when Surge and OpTic had a bit of controversy over the Pred buyout, right? They wanted to buy out Pred. Surge were like, hey, we want this amount of money. OpTic said sure. Then Surge said, actually, no, we want more money. And to our understanding anyway, that happened quite a few times. And then eventually it all worked out for OpTic anyway because they got him for free and they won the World Championship next year, which was a disaster class from Surge where they could have sold him for a massive bag. The point maybe stands, you know, would there be some sort of grudge there held over time? I doubt it, right? I think that if there's business to be done, then business can still be done. And I don't think that Hex wants to hold Legend against his will if he wants to go and play for a CDL team. Does he want to move up and live in Vancouver to play for the Surge? Well, if that gives him the best opportunity to be competitive in the upcoming season, I guess also what are Surge going to do around that, right? Because they were linked to some other players as well. We understand that probably Cloud9 might move in the direction of Afro, Beans and Abe +1. Maybe that could have been Gwyn in another world, but seemingly not the case if Legend ends up on Vancouver Surge and BO7. So yeah, what next for this? I think it's a big story to keep your eyes on for next season. What would Surge do to round out the team? Let's say you got Legend, who will probably play an SMG, then you got Gwyn in the roster as well. You know, what do you do from there? Because the theory would be with a player like Legends, you're going to want some sort of veteran, probably in one of the AR roles anyway, to help him learn the ropes of the game. Who are the best options remaining for that? There aren't really too many. Lots of those veteran ARs have retired over the last few years, and Slash is still getting linked to some extent to the Ravens right now, but who knows what the future holds. So that's the latest update from all accounts. Very much interested your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.